Example 9. You want to change the instructor who was assigned to Hermione in her Anthro 596 independent study class that we enrolled her in for example 8. Hermione's new instructor will be Professor Minerva McGonagall. This example will be successful and will result in an enrollment request status of success. Let's begin with a brand new enrollment request. Imagine that we enrolled Hermione in an independent study, and a few days later she needed to change her instructor. As usual, we will zoom into the enrollment request to make it easier to see. In this example, we will select a new enrollment action that we haven't seen before: normal maintenance. The enrollment request status is pending, and the action is normal maintenance. Normal maintenance can be used to make many types of changes to a student's class enrollment. You can change things like the grading basis, the related class or discussion section, and the assigned instructor, to name a few. Because normal maintenance operates on a class that your student is already enrolled in, the best way to go is to click on the stupendous magnifying glass next to the class number to bring up the student's enrollment listing. Now that our student has quite a few enrollments on her listing, I would like to point out a few enrollment statuses that are visible on this page. We enrolled our student in Anthro 305, so her status for that class is enrolled. We dropped our student out of Anthro 209, so her status for that class is dropped. Anthro 269 is full, so her status is waiting, indicating that she is on the wait list. Searching through our student's enrollment listing, we find the independent study class Anthro 596, and we select it. We are instantly transported back to the enrollment request form with a class number entered along with a bit of information about the class. Once we have selected the right class from Hermione's enrollment listing, all relevant information about her class enrollment has been populated on the form. In particular, the currently assigned instructor, Professor Ralph Falkingham. Notice that the instructor ID field is active and is not grayed out. To change instructors for this enrollment, we simply need to enter the EMPL ID of the new instructor onto the form and submit it. Since we don't know Professor McGonagall's EMPL ID, we can simply click on the magnifying glass for the second time this enrollment to look it up. We enter her name and click Lookup. Not surprisingly, there is only one Minerva McGonagall in SPIRE, so we just click on her information anywhere in the search result list, and we are immediately returned to the form where we can see that Professor Falkingham has been replaced with Professor McGonagall. We will submit the enrollment request, and we can see that it is success. And the change was made by the action normal maintenance. Example 10. Your student wants to swap classes. She wants to drop Anthro 305 and add Anthro 337 utilizing the swap class functionality. Anthro 337 is class number 51392. The class swap will be successful. What is the deal with swap class? Swap class is used to drop a student out of a class that they are currently enrolled in and enroll them into another specific class in one single action. Swap class is much better than using two separate enrollment actions to first drop a student out of one of their classes and then enroll them into another class, because if the enrollment fails, then the drop action is not performed. For this example, we will change the enrollment action to another selection that we haven't seen before. This time we will select Swap Courses. The action is now set to swap courses. Notice that the enrollment request form has dynamically changed by adding a Change To field underneath the class number field. The first step is to select the class that our student wishes to drop. Since our student must be enrolled in a class to swap out of it, the magnifying glass will once again open up our student's enrollment listing, enabling us to select the class to drop. Hermione wishes to swap out of Anthro 305, so we simply find it in her enrollment listing and click on the checkbox to select it. Anthro 305 is now specified in the enrollment request form as the class our student wishes to drop. Since we know the class number for Anthro 337 is 51392, we can simply type it into the Change To field and hit the Tab key to make sure that the class information is what we expect. Now that the swap courses information is all set, we simply hit the Submit button and we can see that the swap was successful. The enrollment status is success. The enrollment action of swap courses is also success. Anthro 305 was changed to Anthro 337. And here is the big picture view of the successful swap courses enrollment request. Example 11. The purpose of this example is to illustrate what happens when you attempt to perform enrollment requests on classes that are outside of your subject areas. Hermione wants to drop out of a music class in which she is currently enrolled, Music 101. Because music classes are outside of Albus's subject areas, he doesn't have access to perform enrollment requests on them, and therefore this class drop enrollment request will fail. It will result in a status of errors found, and an error message will be generated. As we've seen, the enrollment action used to drop a class from a student schedule is drop. Since we are dropping a class that our student is already enrolled in, the best way to specify it is by using the magnifying glass to select it from their enrollment listing. Hermione's enrollment listing is starting to get lengthy, so let's briefly zoom in to make it easier to see. Here is Music 101. We click the checkbox to select it. Music 101 is now entered into our drop class request. Let's click the Submit button and see what happens. As expected, the enrollment request status is errors found. Enrollment action drop, status errors. Let's zoom in on the error messages to see what was generated. Here we have one of the most unreadable messages since the arcade game Zero Wing was ported to the Sega Genesis. I will translate a bit. Our attempt to drop Music 101 is invalid because we don't have permission. User, that's us, does not have access to drop this class. The drop was not processed. The lesson of this example is that any enrollment request for students that you attempt for classes that are outside of your SPIRE B subject areas will result in an error and will not be processed.